What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Temur Roar Structure Commander deck, which is the 5th of 5 Commander decks for Dragonstorm Tarkir. We have done videos for all of the other previous ones so far, giving my kind of unfiltered reaction to each card. I have obviously seen the Commanders, but otherwise I have not really seen much of these, so we're reacting to them for the first time, giving our thoughts, and I encourage you to do the same. If you guys enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Click the bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted, but otherwise, let's dive into the video. We've got Eshki of the Unwritten. It is 4 green, blue, red, legendary creature, spirit dragon with flying and trample. Eshki says, whenever Eshki enters or attacks, look at the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a dragon creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So I really like this card a lot. One of the reasons I had initially pre-ordered this deck was because I thought that this commander seemed really fun on paper. It turns out, though, after the actual reveals and stuff, the deck is up to about $99 to $100 on TCG Player. There's pre-selling that high, which is absolutely insane. Now, I want to remind you of a couple of things. MSRP on these decks is $44.99, and Wizards is officially using an MSRP. So a lot of these were available on Amazon at that price. It does appear the Temur Roar one has sold out for pre-orders, but be aware you will be able to find this deck at your local Targets, Walmarts, Barnes & Noble, etc. And generally speaking, with a very few exceptions, these commander decks do pop up relatively consistently at those stores. So be careful overpaying for one. I do think there will be a chance to find them in the wild, and I do think there will be a chance that the prices will likely, settle out a bit. I don't think that this deck is worth paying $100 for personally. Maybe you feel otherwise. There are certainly some decent cards in it, including a couple decent reprints, but overall, I don't really see it. There is one card I've heard a little bit about here that I've heard is probably going to be one of the bigger reasons for, reprints here. So let's actually jump into, talking about some of the other cards. Eshki is cool. It definitely acts as a way to get the deck moving, but it's also 7 mana to bring out, and while there are ways to reduce the cost of dragons and bring their cost down, I just don't know if it's the best option. But of course, you can certainly use cards like Hellkite Courser to cheat this out onto the field and bypass some of those restrictions, much like you can with Dragon. By no means is it a bad card. I just personally am hesitant about playing commanders that cost that much mana, especially when we don't have access to things like Jeweled Lotus and other cards that could help us to speed that up. Alright, next up we've got Eshki, Temur's Roar, and Eshki is green, blue, red, legendary creature, human warrior. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Eshki. If that spell's power is 4 or greater, draw a card. If that spell's power is 6 or greater, Eshki deals damage equal to Eshki's power to each opponent. So obviously, you want to be able to cast some higher power creature spells in order to really get the most out of this effect, but in order to do so, you want to also kind of buff this up, and you're kind of doing that just by casting creature spells, but it triggers on every cast, so there are certainly ways to ramp this pretty quickly. There might even be some cards that cost or have 6 power, but maybe have restrictions that can't attack or something when they come out, but cost less mana, so maybe there's ways to kind of bypass that and start dealing more damage to the opponents. Overall, though, I think it's fine. Of the two, I actually do kind of prefer Eshki just because it feels like it's at least more workable with a deck that suits my playstyle. But I think a lot of people are really going to like Eshki as well. And I think both are, again, decent options. It's just Eshki's cost makes me a little hesitant. Deceptive Frostkite is 2 blue, creature dragon with flying. You may have this creature enter as a copy of a creature you control with power 4 or greater, except it's a dragon in addition to its other types, and it has flying. We continue to get cards like this for blue. Mockingbird came out not too long ago in Bloomburrow, but this card is actually, I think, really strong, specifically because so many dragons or creatures with power 4 or greater in general have really, really good effects. So obviously this is going to work in dragons, but if you utilize this to, say, copy something like Ancient Copper Dragon, one of the big ancient dragons, one of the other dragons are going to give you all kinds of effects. For low mana, you can still trigger whatever effects may come as a result of it and have another dragon, and obviously with flying, it's going to be able to dodge a lot of stuff unless it has reach, so you can kind of use that to your advantage to get another powerful copy of something you have, while it also is a dragon that benefits from the spells that are exclusive to dragons and stuff. So it just kind of fits within the type while also being a pretty good standalone card as well. Would have been interesting to see a card like this in standard, although it might have been too good. I'm not really sure. But I think I can kind of see, at least on the surface, why, with the fact that it does become a dragon and also gains flying, I can kind of see why they did not choose to go in that direction. Now, Hammerhead Tyrant is new. It is 4 and 2 blue, creature dragon with flying. Whenever you cast a spell, return up to one target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to that spell's mana value to your hand. To its owner's hand, I'm sorry. So this card, basically, if you cast a spell that costs 6, you return an opponent's card with 6 or less mana, etc. This triggers every time, by the way, which is pretty strong. Obviously, it costs 6 to bring out on its own, but we do have plenty of ways to reduce the cost of dragons and to get dragons out bypassing costs. I think this is just a really, really solid card, and the fact that that effect can just trigger consistently plays really well within your, blue-red instant sorceries type thing where you can kind of maximize that ability, but it does not have to, it's not limited to that. You can certainly utilize it with creature spells too. Just overall a pretty strong card in my opinion. Now, I've been very critical about some of the will cards from these decks. I think some have been really good. A few have been a bit lackluster. Let's see how Will of the Temur is. It is 5 and a blue, sorcery. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast this, you may choose both instead. Target player draws cards equal to the greatest mana value among permanents you control, or create a token that's a copy of target permanent, except it's a 4/4 dragon with flying in addition to its other types. It's pretty solid. The draw power is certainly nice, and the token copying is good. 6 mana, so it's a bit steep, but you are able to utilize both effects, and in a scenario where you can do that, that can often lead to some devastating combos. I think it's okay. I was a little too quick to rush to judgment on one of the other ones, so I'm not going to say definitively that this is bad, but for me personally, it doesn't do much on the surface. I'll have to dig a little bit more into some of the combos. Parapet Thrasher is 2 and 2 red, creature dragon with flying. Whenever one or more dragons you control deal combat damage to an opponent, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Either destroy target artifact that opponent controls, this creature deals 4 damage to each other opponent, or exile the top card of your library, you may play it this turn. Certainly not bad as removal outs and being able to deal some damage. I think if you attack all 3 of your opponents, you can trigger all 3 effects, so there's at least that. It doesn't cost a ton to bring out, and it can probably offer, a good bit of benefit. I think it'll be a card you include, especially in like Dragon, Tribal, or Kindred decks. It's alright. It's definitely something I can see being useful while not being like overly powerful. Thundermane Dragon is 3 and a red, creature dragon with flying. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells with power 4 or greater from the top of your library. If you cast a creature spell this way, it gains haste until end of turn. This one I like a lot. Being able to slot into not just dragons, but other decks with higher cost cards is certainly, impressive on the surface. Not to mention the ability to give things haste is really good if you're able to work that, kind of play into that in a way that, kind of coincides with your deck building. And it only costs 4 mana before reductions and stuff. So I think overall it's pretty good and kind of checks all the boxes for me. Zenith Festival is X and 2 red, sorcery. Exile the top X cards of your library. You may play them until the end of your next turn. And then it does have Harmonize, so you can tap a creature to reduce that cost by the amount of generic mana. The cool part about that, though, is that you can reduce the cost of X. Like, if you tap a creature whose power is 6, you can bring X down to 6, exile the top 6, you play them till your next turn. And obviously the regular effect can do this too, but Harmonize is basically just saying if you control a creature, tap it, and you get that extra benefit out of it. So I do think this card's pretty good, better than it seems on the surface, because being able to do it twice, especially with access to the Harmonize effect, can be really, really useful. So I do think that's a pretty good thing to keep in mind when looking at some cards in this set. We've got Become the Avalanche. It is 4 and 2 green, sorcery. Just draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Then creatures you control get +X till end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Not bad for draw power, combining a couple of popular green effects onto one card. I do think there are some cards that do better, that give +X and trample. I think Overwhelming Stampede is a pretty good card. But it's not bad per se. Just there might be some better options, and that based on my knowledge, I'm not super impressed with it, but it seems all right. And Broodcaller Scourge is 5 and 2 green with flying, creature dragon. Whenever one or more dragons you control deal combat damage to a player, you may put a permanent card of mana value less than or equal to that damage from your hand onto the battlefield. And this card is very much a dragon. It's extremely, in tune with a lot of what we've seen from dragon effects. Being able to put any permanents out with, without having to worry about the mana, is huge in a deck where a lot of creatures cost quite a bit of mana, and because it's, you know, multiple dragons can deal the damage, the total combined damage that they deal, it's not going to be that hard to be able to deal, you know, 6-7 damage if you got a good bit of dragons out. So I really like this, and I think it will be a good tool for those decks to have, especially with the reduced costs. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. I did cover all 10 of the new cards in the deck. Like I said, it is pre-selling at a pretty high price right now, so keep that in mind before you make any purchases. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of this deck, and now that we've looked at all 5, tell me which one you think is the best, which one is your favorite, because I'm actually curious, and I think, you know, that this is a really, really fun slate of Commander decks that should have a lot to offer to, you know, everyone who's interested in building something with these cards. I'll catch you guys in the next video.